Welcome back to the Berg Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And we are continuing to talk about recruiting and more so like recruiting the right people. So we talked a little bit, I don't know, was that like 2 weeks ago?
Time flies when you're having fun.
It's hard. I can't, yeah. Recently. We talked recently about recruiting and the things that we're doing a little bit differently. And we thought we maybe didn't get quite in depth enough with the idea of finding the right people. We talked about not finding the wrong people. Did we talk about finding the right people?
I think we've jumped around a bunch of stuff, and I think there was a couple things we said that we'd like to kind of clarify and maybe get a little more depth into in relationship to that. It's not what you currently do. It's really about the mindset and things like that that are so important here. And every time we've had challenges and we realize that if we didn't make the right hire, it's just pain for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, slowing down and, the operation teams will take us all out behind the woodshed after we talk about this. But the reality is that one right person is probably worth 3 to 4 not right people.
Can I get us off track for 1 second?
Oh yeah, I like this. Go ahead.
Hey, he's doing it. Let's put a marker in here.
So this thought just occurred to me, right? Our podcasts are typically somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes, right? We don't do real long podcasts, and that's intentional. We try and keep them short. I think when I know for me personally, at least when I listen to a podcast, it's like a drive length, right? Like my average drive to places is like 20 to 25 minutes. I like to hear the whole content, and I'm really bad at times about listening to the episode in contiguous sessions where I just get back to the car and it keeps playing. And it just made me think about this because did you and I talk about this, or
you were listening to a 14-hour no, it was 4-hour podcast.
Yeah,
You're I can't even
I was
keep track of
listening
it.
to, I don't even know, Jocko Wilnick. I don't even know how to say his last name. I was listening to one of his episodes recently, or trying to at least, and it was almost 3 hours. It was 2 hours and 45 minutes long. Anyways, I just thought
That's like Gone with the Wind level.
right.
Did you have an intermission in the middle?
I don't know what is there, Lincoln, or what was there's a 3-hour movie, Gettysburg. Yes, I don't know.
It's one of those you put on for the airplane ride, and halfway through you fall asleep and you didn't listen to it anyways.
Yeah,
We're already sidetracked on this, but that happened. We were watching. I think it was Gone with the Wind or one of those movies.
Is that long? I don't know.
It seems really long as I remember.
It felt long.
And I'm watching this movie. Aaron wanted to watch it, and I thought the movie was over. And I knew, I'm terrible with old movies because I haven't seen them, but I vaguely felt like there should have been more to this movie. Not I needed more time wise, but just there was parts I knew as a reference.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, a sign came up on the screen. It said interlude or intermission or something. I was like, what's this?
During the movie?
Yeah. She said, oh, this is because when they put it out, the movie, you needed a break. I was like, they're not done. And she said, no, that's half. And I was like, this is so the South, right? Which is going to make people on the podcast potentially angry. But I was like, this is taking so long. I don't have this kind of time. I didn't have 3 hours when I said I'd watch a movie.
Well, I had to let the plot develop. Should
have watched it at 1.5 speed or something like that to get done quicker.
That's a new thing. I don't think that existed with Gone with the Wind.
I don't think that existed.
Can't you fast forward?
I sidetracked your sidetrack. So
but anyways, I was thinking maybe that one of the things that we've done a couple times is we've come back and said I don't know if we fully expressed what we were trying to say, or I don't know if we got the whole thought out. And that might be because we're intentionally trying to keep it short. So sometimes we don't get deep enough. I don't know. That could be.
Well, and there's also times that I'll listen back to it just to, see how it, and there's a little kernel that might have been something that was said in passing that then turns into hey, that's a full
another
thought that we need to get out, but it was just kind of part of because this is off the cuff, we don't have our whiteboards here and stuff, so we're just kind of saying it as it goes.
Yeah, we should make this a vlog sometime or whatever that's called, right? So people could actually know that we literally just sit down and start talking. It's
could we start it early so you see that we didn't even come in with a plan? We sat down and said we're gonna we got a few things we might talk about. What do you want to talk about? What would you
like to talk about today?
Just hit record. We'll get there.
Hit record. We'll get there.
Anyway, so sorry, off track already, but it just occurred to me that could be part of it. Maybe at times, I'm not by any means suggesting we go to 2.5 hours. But
so since we're switching roles, I'll try and get us back on track.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
So I was at BCTC last week.
Oh, this is still off topic,
And
though.
no, this is on topic.
Oh,
So I was at BCTC, and I gave the kids the opportunity to ask some questions in the field. It's the end of their year. Some of them
Yeah.
are graduating. A couple guys are coming on board with us. We talked about that, and one of the questions came up, and they said, "Why should we want to work for Berg? Like, what makes you better?" Is what the kid said.
that's
right?
awesome. What a great question. I don't think young people often think that way, right? Which is really cool to hear.
So I said to him, "Well, I'm going to be really honest with you. We're not better." I said, "We're different." I said, like, I myself internally would say, I think we are a great place to work. I would tell anybody that's asking, here's why I think here's what would make you a good fit here, sort of that thing. And that's how this ties together. I said to him, if you want to do really big earthwork, you want to work on massive projects with pans and everything else, like Muschlitz would be a really good fit. They do a lot of big work. I said, if you want to do utility work and just focus on that, like Barrasso might be a really good fit for you guys. I said, and I sort of went through that. I said, so the first thing you have to do is identify, what do you want to do? Like, what line of this do you want to do? Or do you want the ability to do a little bit of everything? And that's where you really get to a company like Berg, where we have crews that do any number of different things and there's more variation in the day. I said, then you go one step further into the company and their actual values and how they want to set up. And I tried to go through that with them a little bit. And I said, so it's not that we're better, it's that we're all different. And I don't think there's anybody out there trying to be a bad company necessarily, but you have to figure out how you fit into that company. Because if you fit it, it'll work well, And so it was an interesting point. Ford and I had already sort of talked about this after one of the podcasts before, but it just triggered me with that thought that it's as much as we're looking for the right person for us, we also need that right person to actively be looking and have some cognizance of where they want to go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's what we really wanted to define a little bit more and put the line in the sand, as they say, because, we talk about triple win. It's got to be a win for everybody and all that kind of stuff. But, people that it's a job, everybody has a job. I mean, everybody has to go to work usually, except for
7 million people.
7 million people. But
there's a few. There's a few who don't.
There's a few that don't want to.
Don't work.
Yeah, exactly. But we need to, it's got to work for both sides. And so that's where there's all the soft things that you can't just define by looking at a website. You can't just define by the truck that drives by you on the highway, because there's intangibles, I guess would be the easiest way to put that. And it's hard to describe them. But once you try and describe them, then it hopefully creates that checklist for somebody that might be interested and says, hey, this sounds like a place that fits with what I believe in, how I like to do my thing. And then all of a sudden, there's a long-term track for both sides.
Yeah. And let's be serious. Like, anyone can put those things on their website, right? Like we've been, I think, pretty intentional over the last few years about updating our website and making sure our core values are reflective of who we are and things like that. But if you aren't actually doing those things, it's a much different place than just being able to say you're those things, right? And maybe that's one of the things that I think have done well is, we've said we're not the right fit for everyone, but here's who we are. And I think we've been pretty true to those core values of who we are, which makes us a really good fit for some people.
Yeah, and I think that I think we've been intentional also, not just about the idea, but being who we say we're going to be. In other words, because it's really easy when things are going well and everything's perfect to be who you want to be, but in your worst moment, are you still that person? Are you still that company? And I think that's where we've been really intentional about saying, listen, when things aren't going exactly the way that we want, that's still who we want to be. We want to make this decision every time. And Herb Sargent had something, and I don't remember what it was, but we had talked to him, and it was that everyone in the company has to know the answer. Like, in other words, if a situation occurs, you should be able to expect that anyone in the company would know what the decision to make is. If you've been transparent and intentional about delivering the message, then it should be that everyone knows. It shouldn't just be that they have to look to one person to make a decision. And that lends itself to our autonomy model when we want people to be able to be empowered to make decisions. Part of that is putting them in a situation where they understand what the decisions we say we would make, but also have seen people make these decisions. We had We had a situation recently where one of our young foremen had to make a hard decision, and he made the decision based on what we wanted the company to be. And it wasn't the easiest decision for him to make, and it worked out. And I think everybody's better for it, but it's that really happening, getting to that level when everybody really knows that it's not just a board in the office. It's not just something that's on our website.
Right.
It really matters. And it also, Brian, another place I think it came in was when we worked through and we were putting, recently we went with the, a new, not a new slogan, but a new, we worked it through and we had a few choices and we went back and forth and it was, something we were going to put out and we worked through it. And one of the ones we struggled with that I really liked was till the job gets done or till the job is done, or I forget exactly what the lingo of it was. And we realized that I really liked it, but everybody I told, I had to explain what I was doing because they wouldn't know. And I totally get why we went the route we did. And I think it was a good call. But I also think as we grow, we're getting to the point where we could use that phrase because the people who really are our core and the people who we want to attract would understand that, what I really meant was we see things through, but it was a dirt world way of saying that we see things through to say till the job is done.
Yeah, that's a funny one because we were talking about that just the other day again and how I think we've had to, the world and the powers that be, as we would say, have told us we have to be open for everything and we have to transition to meet these new parameters that people think are real.
There's like an implication, right? That everyone should be a good fit for us. And
we just have to meet them
at
that spot.
Right. And I just don't think that's the case for us or for potential candidates. I don't think that every workplace is or should be a good fit for every person. Because
you know what? I 100% agree. And I could tie it to something else I was talking to Mara, but I'm going to stick with right where we are because I think this is really important. If Berg and say the other 20 excavation heavy civil companies near us are all the same, then that means there's only a place to work for this homogenous group of people that fit this bland thing that we all made.
Right.
But when each owner and each owner group, because some of the companies are owned by groups, develops a thing that they want to be, it gives the opportunity for everybody. That's what made America. What made us what we were was we were a blend of a lot of different things and there was opportunity for everyone. But to have opportunity for everyone, you have to have diversity. You can't all be the same. You can't all try and make it so that everyone would want to work there. If you're a place that everyone wants to work, I feel like you must overpay or you must have really good benefits or you must just, it's not actually your culture. It must be something that physically pays out, like a slot machine. If I said, hey, there's 5 slot machines and one of them always pays, every time you pull it, you're going to win. Everyone would want to go to that.
Sure.
But it's not because you actually liked that game you were playing. It's because you know that the payout is going to be substantial, And I think, have we, in other words, it wasn't even supposed to be this topic, but have we started to work ourselves into a corner as companies by trying to be homogenous that we're not attracting people who fit us? We're just all saying we'll pay you $1 more, $1 more, $1 more. And that's good for labor to a point, but nobody realizes if I pay you $1 more, that means what I do cost $1 more. If what I do costs $1 more, the guy I'm doing it for, he has to charge $1. And pretty soon you have inflation. There's no secret here. When you drive up costs, that's inflation. And I think that it is tied. You know what I mean? I think there's some relationship there between the fact that we've homogenized everything. And, that's where we are. Ford and I, years ago, Ford, do you remember when we talked about you were going somewhere and I would tend to drive places even far and Ford would as well. And we said the fun of driving places was gone because it used to be you left. I would leave New Jersey. And when you get to West Virginia or Alabama, when you're heading Mississippi, when I'm heading to Louisiana, I can't even get the same music. The restaurants are different. The grocery stores are different. The convenience stores, the gas stations, the music, the people's language, everything was different. Now, everywhere you go, there's a CVS and a Chipotle. There's some variation of a Wawa. It might be a Sheetz. It might be a Royal Farms. It might be, what's the one?
Buc-ee's.
Maybe a
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's. I've heard Buc-ee's is different.
Right.
Well, Buc-ee's is like the best of everything. So
That's
Actually
what they
saw-
said about Wawa
I
years ago.
was somewhere the other day and a girl actually had a Bucky sweatshirt on, and like I almost turned around to ask her if like there was one local that I didn't know about. But I assumed she was just wearing it from out of town.
Yeah.
But I mean, you go to every town that has a Walmart, right? And they have a similar stance. There's going to be a hair facility in there. There's probably going to be some type of Asian food. I mean, like it's literally a Subway.
Right? Yeah.
And they follow each other around because they have a market research that says that.
Yeah.
But there is no local flavor. Now, when you find a place that still reverts back to what they wanted to be, it creates uniqueness. There's actually a town in New York that they paid a lot of fines to the state because they refused to put the train line or something into their town. And like they had to pay because of issues. But like it created a unique
Community.
downtown, a unique community that people now go to because it's not like every other neighborhood down the street from them. And I think, that's the same thing happens with townships. They all now follow this one big UCC code thing. And, there's no unique houses. There's no unique architecture because they all have adopted a centralized system.
Everything's got to fit inside the same box. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to, we're accepting that, each company has its own set of things and
Right.
it's not better or worse. And, some days maybe we don't get to live up to what we're always striving to.
Yeah.
But I think it's at the time and, there's just been this undercurrent going on that we're listening to that like people are going like, no, we are going to
Right.
stick to what we are and we're going to be unapologetic about it. And we're going to look for people that are interested in the same things.
Yeah, and it's not it's not an attempt to be abrasive, right? I mean, we figured out what works.
What works for us.
Yeah, and so and I'm thinking about it even as you're talking here, Ford. Like, what worked when you were a young company was your family and friends were the ones who were doing the work, right? And because it was your family and your friends, they were similar to you. So, because they were similar to you, they understood what you were trying to accomplish. They had similar work habits and expectations. And so that's the reason it worked. And as we grew, we went through a period of time where we were growing so quickly that at times we had to just like add anybody, right? We needed somebody to do the work. And we did. We went through a couple of years with a lot of transition, a lot of people in, a lot of people out. And it was mostly because we needed to fill seats and needed to fill spots on the roster, but we're not committed at the time to like the conversation we're having right now. We weren't necessarily committed to like, all right, here's who we are, here's who we want to be. And so we need to find people that buy in to what we're trying to accomplish in order for it to make sense on both sides of the line. And I feel like to some extent we're really making a push to try and get back to that. You know what I mean? Trying to find the right people to fill the right seats on the bus.
In like a crazy example that I said like had come to my mind was I was having a conversation with Mara yesterday driving home from a late soccer game. And she was talking about some stuff going on at school and then somehow about house and whatever. And I said, well, we're not going to look to move. Aaron and I would like to move one more time realistically into like the house we would retire in. And in a perfect world, do it before the girls are completely out of school. But I said, we can't make those decisions until we know for sure where you're going to go to school, where you're going to go to high school. And so she said, well, like, I want to go somewhere that's really good at soccer. And I was like, okay, but that's not really a great way to make a decision for high school. I said, like, I know you want to play soccer and we can talk about that. I said, but like, start at the very beginning. I said, like, do you want to go to a school that has just girls or has boys and girls? Right. And she was like, I don't know. I mean, it might be nice to go to a school with just girls because, and she had a bunch of reasons that she thought. And that's what I think that's what I'd like it to get back to, right? Like, is go with the most simple thing. Like, what do we want from an employee? Start with a really high level list, like really high level of what we want. And and what we need to be a good part of us. Because we know that to some degree, right? Like, I mean, we know that we can, at certain levels we use predictive index. At other times it's just trusting our people that are doing the interview process to interview the people and get who that person is at a very high level. But we also need the employees that are applying to us or to other companies to do the same thing. Come in with an understanding of who you're trying to work for, and would you like to work for them? I mean, the reality is some people might not like to work for Ford and Brian and Dan. They might not like to work for Scott or Brad or Dylan. You know what I mean? They might not like to work for our foreman. So do some research, figure out who we are and what we really are. And if that's something that interests you, then chances are you'll come in and we'll feel the same way, but we have to, as a like industry, but even bigger than that, like as a country, we have to get back to saying we're gonna look for people whose desires to have a career match what we're looking for, instead of just saying I'm looking for a person. I mean, it doesn't feel like something you should say, but how long have we heard many people say, like, if you just show up and you had a heartbeat, people would hire you because the labor market's so bad. Like, that's insane. Like, we all did it. Listen, I was like the ringleader of hiring because I would sit here and say, like, I have no choice, Brian. We have the work. The equipment is sitting there. Someone has to run it. But looking back on it, it's like, how crazy is that? Like, it doesn't even make any sense for me to just say, I mean, like, you would never do that anywhere else. I mean, right? Like, I mean, I don't think any of us like turned, 17 years old and said, I have to get married tomorrow. Like, I don't know who, but somebody's, you know what I mean? Like,
somebody fill the role.
Somebody
quick,
fill
please.
the role. Like, you don't make life altering decisions that way and be successful as a human being.
Right.
But a lot of people are doing it with companies and then are surprised when it doesn't work out well. And so I think it's really important that we say who we are, we be who we are, and then we hire the people who match that.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And I think the important thing that we always have stressed in the past too, that like, it's not about your skills, or if you don't have, like if we always talk about it, like we'll gladly teach people. It's not about that. That's, that affects maybe where you're on the pay scale of certain things, but like literally it's not about that. I mean, you two guys both came from outside the industry. It was more about the people than the actual, things we can learn on the job, but it's more about the interest in wanting to be in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a tough one to answer because I think that we all have an idea of who's right for us, right? But to verbalize it even in an interview and to talk through it with a candidate, it's got to be mutual.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good place to wrap it up. I don't know if we answered the question or not, but thanks for joining us. We hope you got something out of this, and we look forward to having you with us again on another podcast.